Hello, Mr. Sheyi. Good morning.
Hey, Kalawale, how are you? Morning.
Yes. So for those of us joining, or those of us that have joined, our topic today is how will 5G shape the future of work in Nigeria? And I have with me Mr. Sheyi. Is the current manager IP planning and enterprise solution with Nine Mobile. Mr. Sheyi, has been in the industry for over 20 years, and he has solid experience and is well qualified to speak in this topic. Mr. Sheyi, you're welcome. Thank you for coming with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
All right. So we were scheduled to have this interview before, or just shortly before the lockdown started. But unfortunately, the lockdown started, and now we have to do it over the internet.
Yeah.
If you, for example, for those of us watching at home, if you, for example, are having network issues, I assure you that with 5G, there's not going to be such issues, because we'll be looking at faster speeds and the rest of it. So we'll just lay into it, and I'll ask my first question. You can also ask questions from home. Just type in your questions, and I'll be able to ask Mr. Sheyi, and then we'll be able to address all of these questions, because there's a lot of discourse surrounding 5G, and we'll get into all of those. There's a lot of conspiracy theories in the world right now, but we'll get into all of those. But before, just as we start, help us have an understanding of 5G. What is 5G, and how does it compare to 3G and 4G, for example?
Okay, so 5G, when it comes to telecommunication services, 5G actually, the G in 5G actually represents a generation, and it's an evolution of technology. And for you to understand 5G, you have to go way back to understand the evolution of telecommunication, where it started from. And basically, I'll just quickly do, a recap of that. Initially, and I mean, you can bear me witness to this, telecommunication in Nigeria was basically handled by Nitel. So it was more of landlines, fixed lines, and all of that. At that point, it was an analog communication. So we usually call that 1G network. So basically, at that point, the only thing you could do was make voice calls. Now, however, with time, and I'm talking about in the 80s, right? And with time, evolution came, and we moved into the 2G. What you have to understand with telecoms is that every 10 years, there's some form of evolution that happens with, new technology, new architecture, new ways of getting things done. So once we move from 1G to 2G in the 90s, thereabout, the possibility for you to do SMS, text messages, USSD was added, and then communication became mobile. So you had, like a Nokia 3310 that you could, take around with you and all of that. That was 2G at the time. Now, 2G also evolved to 3G, where we were able to add more things to the architecture to enable faster speed. Because about that time, things like internet services was added to mobile communication. So you could have your phone and still check your mail. Prior to that, what we were doing before was going to cyber cafes, right? Yeah. But this way, by the time you got to 3G, you didn't need to go to a cyber cafe because your mobile phone had, internet access on it. Exactly. Now, by the time that evolution came, new technology also brought the fact that we could do things faster now with 4G. So with 4G, you have faster speed compared to 3G. The architecture was a bit leaner for you to be able to have lower latency and, and faster delivery of services, for your communication needs. So now we're able to add video. So it wasn't just internet access now. You could do video with the likes of what we're doing right now, using our Instagram, all the social media platform came in the last 10 to 12 years. Now, that was 4G. Yeah. 5G is coming, or it has already come, basically, where you now have faster speeds than 4G. And it's more like 10 times, higher and faster than the speed that you get in 4G. So that's basically the evolution. So the difference is in terms of the throughput speed that you're going to get, in terms of your download rate will be faster and all that. And this is a typical example I give anybody. If you want to download a movie, for example, Guardians of the Galaxy, it's a 2-hour movie, right? If you have 5G, you're going to do that in less than 4 seconds. compared to a 4G network that might take you 30 minutes, to an hour, and a 3G network that will take you longer. So
Oh, yeah.
that is whole, evolution and architecture when it comes to, the different generations of technology for telecoms.
All right, sir. Apart from just in the evolution, it seems to me that there is also a difference of infrastructure. Like you were mentioning in the beginning, Natel with 1G, everybody had to use. I mean, there had to be poles erected. The wires had to come directly to your house, and many people could not get that, so they had to go and queue, at the Natel box or Natel office to call. And now we had 2G, which means that it came to the phone, but then you could text and call via your phones, the Nokia 3310s, but at the same time, anything internet, you still have to go to the cyber cafe to get it done. And then we got 3G, which meant faster, bigger, more efficient masts. And now we're on 4G, and we are getting, even smaller devices to beam the networks to our homes or wherever we are. So regarding 5G, what are the key developments going on in the world right now concerning 5G? Because I believe that with the evolution of new technology comes new infrastructure, because you need this infrastructure to power the technology. For example, with 5G, for example, you need a new type of phones. We could not use the same phones that we use for 1G, for 2G, for 3G, for 4G, and now for 5G. So what are the key developments going on in the world?
Okay, so in terms of development, right, and like you rightly said, the architecture is slightly different from the conventional architecture. So if you look at the evolution that I mentioned, at the point of deploying 2G, there was a change in the architecture because we had to introduce data, right? So a couple of things were put into the architecture to enhance, the speed and the new services that are coming in. The same thing happened with 4G, basically, 4G. The architecture changed, right? Now, that's also the same thing that is happening with 5G because of the fact that the content of the future basically is video. There's a Cisco forecast that basically says about 82% of the content of the future is going to be video, is going to be full multimedia, right? Now, with that in mind, the technology has to evolve to allow access that will be big enough to carry those kind of packets, video, full multimedia, and the likes. So yes, there is a bit of change in the architecture that focuses on faster throughput and also reduced latency. So one of the things that is happening, around 5G right now is the fact that the existing use case that we have in the different industry that was not really commercial because of the fact that the latency was too high or the bandwidth was too small, we can start to implement those use cases right now. So, for example, there is something called telemedicine, where it's the ability for you to be able to, you don't have to be physically in the same location with a medical doctor or a surgeon. They can remotely, work on your body or check you and all of that. Now, telemedicine exists right now with 4G. However, the latency is too much. The bandwidth requirement is not available. But with 5G now, things like virtual reality, augmented reality is possible. So I can have a surgeon sitting in Japan and working on a patient in Nigeria using the 5G network because the latency is smaller, the bandwidth is bigger, the person can perform the surgery near real time because of that new technology that's called 5G.
All right. You mentioned that before I even go to that, just for the benefit of some of our viewers, when you mentioned low latency, what does it mean?
So latency is talking about the time it takes for packets to move from one point to the other, right? For example, so as I'm talking to you now, the latency is small. That's why you're almost hearing me live, right? There is no, I mean, it's not delayed. That's what latency is about. Okay. So so the same thing like you watch football, Super Sport, you watch a live match, EPL. If the latency was high, somebody would have shouted, "Oh, it's a goal," and then you will wait like 10, seconds or 11 seconds before you see it. But because they're trying, they work on it so much that it is near real time. So the moment they're scoring in Manchester or Chelsea, you also see it happen. So that's why That's the essence of latency. So with 5G, the latency is near real time. And I'll give you another use case for it. There was a test that was done in the UK for a concert. The singer was in Germany, right?
Okay.
But the keyboardist was playing in London.
London, yeah.
The latency was so small that the singer could hear, was singing accurately. There was no buffering, nothing. And that's what 5G network can bring.
Okay, so that brings us to our key question. Before I ask the quick question, I'd like our viewers to know that Mr. Seyi was one of the pioneer engineers of packet data in Nigeria. And so when we speak on this topic, he knows exactly what he's talking about. So my key question, you just talked about a possible revolution in terms of healthcare delivery relating to 5G when it finally comes on board. But in a broader sense, how do you, of course, we know that it's going to bring faster downloads, faster internet speeds, and probably enable existing technologies to function better than they do. For example, Internet of Things, the virtual reality, augmented reality. But how do you see it shaping the future of work in Nigeria, for example? And this is why I mentioned Nigeria. Nigeria seems to be, or maybe Africa, but Nigeria seems to be slow on the adoption of new technologies. For example, even 4G does not have, proper penetration into the markets or localities in the country. And now we are here with 5G that could make things, better instantly. With how quickly do you see us introducing this new tech? I know a test was done in Calabar and one was done in Abuja last year, Huawei and one other telecommunication company. But how do you see it being adopted in Nigeria, and how do you see it shaping the future of work in the country?
Okay, so let me try and decouple the questions in a couple of ways. So the first thing is, in terms of what's getting ready, our readiness in Nigeria for this, we're still a long way. And for me, I think it's still going to take us another 2 to 3 years, before we can say we're actually ready, because there are a couple of other things that is not in place yet. So one of them is the spectrum, the frequency that for us to use. Like you rightly said, a trial was done last year, and what NCC did was give a trial spectrum for 3 months. Now, after that trial was over, it was withdrawn. And that was shut down. Basically, we still need to clean up the spectrum that needs to be used for 5G. That's one. The other thing is, from a commercial point of view, you just mentioned 4G right now. We have not really pushed 4G into the entire country the way we expect in terms of the broadband efficiency and the rate at which broadband spread across the country, both in rural and urban areas. So that needs to be put in place. Then from an infrastructure point of view, you and I know that we're still struggling with power. We're still struggling with infrastructure that should have been there early before all of this technology comes in that allows us to be able to. So things like fiber, across the different locations, to institutions, to schools and all of that. We're still lagging behind when it comes to that. However, it's a good thing for us to still try and get ourselves ready for it, despite the challenges of the infrastructure. Okay. Now, going back to how it's going to affect work, I mean, you and I are doing this online on Instagram right now. Like you rightly said, we have done this in your studio before the lockdown.
Yes.
We've had to adapt to it. Now, a lot of people are on lockdown right now, working from home, staying at home. So people are working remotely. Schools are being done remotely. We're attending religious services online remotely. Those are the kind of things that is going to change as we evolve into this technology. Now, in a situation where, like I gave an example about telemedicine, it could also apply to a school. So a teacher can actually physically be in one location, but virtually be teaching multiple classes at the same time.
Which is something we worked with a company recently, technology distribution. It is, I believe it is one of their e-learning solutions, that they are trying to provide, teaching, especially in these times.
So that's one of the things, right? People are working remotely now. The need for security is higher because now we're using computers, we're using our phone, we're using Zoom, we're using Skype and all these different applications to communicate. Security needs to be higher. So to a large extent, the need for security will increase as people begin to, work from home, have virtual connections and all of that. There is a possibility now of having smart homes where your devices are connected in terms of Internet of Things. You'll be able to control a lot of things remotely and all of that. So you will need to have people that are experts in that field to be able to support it when it is a use case that is commercially available. So there's a lot of things that will change, in terms of the way work is being done in the future. A lot of things will go cloud, a lot of things will go virtual, and you don't have to be physically in a brick and mortar building to work anymore. So those are the things that basically will change in the future.
Yeah, and it seems that the technology for the future, like you mentioned, is cloud computing. Nobody is doing physical storage or anything like that anymore. So would evidently need faster, more reliable internet to back up all of our files in no time or in quick time.
Absolutely.
And like you rightly said, when you were pointing out that we would have held the interview in our studio, but unfortunately, and we've seen this crisis modify, workplace behavior. We've seen the crisis modify workplace behavior. There is this popular textile retailer in the UK. I can't remember their name, but they've not been able to make just one sale. They've not been able to make one sale. That would have been different on the internet. And I believe after crisis is over, I believe that is one of the things that they will look into, and other businesses too are beginning to look like. I'm going to begin to look at, okay, what do we do when we cannot exist in a building? And now you open new for work. So I think, like you rightly said, that of course 5 is here to aid work and going to shape our things of work. Because I mean, one of the things that employers are concerned about is that, okay, if you can do work from home, do you have the internet to do that? We can provide internet facility in our home with a dictated speed. You can do that in your houses, for example. That will bring us to a question concerning the workings of surrounding this health pandemic. A lot of people, a lot of protests, even in advanced nations, about the 5G technology. People link it, a lot of conspiracy theories, some linking it to coronavirus. Like one of our viewers is saying that protests have greeted the 5G network in Spain and other European countries because they believe that, it causes coronavirus. Even here in Nigeria, where there is no trace of 5G, NFI issued any telecommunications company. We have protests. Seems to be the misconception between 5G relating with health.
Okay, so the thing is this, like you rightly said, there's been a whole lot of conspiracy theories about 5G, coronavirus, and all of that. And the truth of the matter is, to a large extent, like I explained to you, that every telecoms evolution, every generation is about 10 years. So this 5G stuff had already started way back in 2010 in terms of research, in terms of development, and all of that. It's not a recent thing that just came out. Okay, now and from a health perspective, right, I need to just clearly state that now that I'm speaking to you, there is no health concern with the deployment of 5G. Like you rightly said, there are some locations in the world that already have 5G, even as far back as last year, like South Korea, for example, before the outbreak of coronavirus. And so one of the things I advise people to do is this: it's always natural as human beings when it comes to new technology. We're always a bit scared or fearful of things we don't understand. And one of the things that I advise is go online, not on social media. Open a browser, go to Google, and check some of these things out yourself. Okay, there's a ton of research out there as certification and validation from NCC here in Nigeria, from the WHO, from international bodies and all of that, stating that there is a threshold that the 5G deployment will not cross. I don't want to go into a lot of the technical details, but basically the range where 5G is being deployed is non-ionizing electromagnetic frequency range.
Yeah.
What that means is it's not powerful enough to dissociate an atom. So it can't really change anything from a DNA point of view or from an atomic level point of view. It's the same spectrum that your microwave and some of the other telecom services that we have right now, Wi-Fi, infrared, things like that, that's the same spectrum that this is being deployed. So people need to have a clear understanding. And I appreciate the fact that, yes, as human beings, we always fear the things we don't understand. But what I would advocate for is that people go online, not on social media, go online and actually check these things out yourself.
All right. We have a question from Dreyeral. He says, can we have 5G without the full maximization of 4G in a situation where LTE is not even optimal? I believe what he's saying is that, well, we do not have 4G penetration fully yet. Is it possible that some areas jump from 3G to 5G straight, for example?
Okay, so there's an evolution path for this, right? Okay. And that's why I took the time earlier to show you the different generations from 1G all the way to the existing 4G. Yes, he's right. The penetration of 4G in Nigeria, for example, is not as desired, right? Yeah. And even the throughput is not as expected because of our underlying issues with infrastructure and the likes that I mentioned earlier. But from a commercial point of view, we also need to be at the cutting edge of technology, which is the reason why we need to test run and do these trials to be sure that, okay, yes, when we're ready to roll it out, we have everything it takes. There are different evolution paths from 4G to 5G. So each of us will need to look at it and decide which one is best to evolve into while we're still enhancing the 4G penetration, throughput, and all of these things. But we can't be too far behind technology because, again, the world is becoming more and more connected. So if you're working, so let me give you a typical example. If we don't have 5G in Nigeria, right, and there's a patient that needs, a specialized surgery, and the surgeon can't travel down to Nigeria, but the surgeon is in a 5G network and is ready to use 5G for the remote surgery. If we don't have it here, it's going to be difficult for that surgery to happen. So that's why we need to follow technology, but we also need to look at what we have existing in terms of our infrastructure and make the existing 4G better while we look at the evolution part or the migration part to 5G.
All right, you just said that we need to follow closely and we must not be left behind. I was going to ask a question, but we have a question from somebody in the audience, Boy Twitty. He says that we have seen living organisms like trees being drained by the 5G mast, I believe, in some countries. So how do you explain the non-involvement of the 5G network to it?
Okay, so what I would say is this, like I mentioned earlier, this evolution happens every 10 years, right? Yeah. So it's not that 5G just happened now. It's something that has been in the works for the last 10 years. And there's been a whole lot of research about it in terms of safety, in terms of the health, risk and all of that. The same thing happens when we're transitioning from 1G to 2G. That's from the analog to digital where you're carrying mobile phones. These same fears came up and we had research, we had doctors, professors in research lab that tested some of these things over time for us to be able to say, okay, you know what, there's a safety level. As long as you don't cross that safety level, then you're fine. Look at it this way. Any responsible business or organization will not deploy a solution that will kill the subscribers or injure the subscribers.
Exactly.
It's not responsible. Exactly. So if I'm selling a product to you, I want you to be able to buy it and use it, not to kill you and then get you out of the market. It's not responsible. So again, some of these controversies are there. Let me go back to, there was a time, you remember the Y2K bug, the Millennium bug?
Yeah,
1999. Everybody said the world is going to an end because the 99 is going to turn to 00. A lot of things happen. People did all sorts. do you realize that there was a time in the past that human beings believed the world was flat, and that if you think so much in a direction, you drop off the earth, right? Now, science, we know that it's a round earth, it's not a flat earth. So these things are natural, I understand that, but what I'm just appealing to people is go and do your own research yourself and get to understand this technology better.
All right. So I have one possible final question, but then I'm sure that you will say something that will make me ask you another question. So
No problem.
you have been the manager of IP and planning, IP planning and enterprise at Nine Mobile for about 5 years now.
Right.
It's April, so it's 5 years. Happy anniversary.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
What plans or what is your company, Nine Mobile? What are they doing, to facilitate this infrastructure? I know that companies always want to be the ones at the edge of cutting-edge solutions, and they always want to be, the best that can leverage their business on. So, what is Nine Mobile doing?
So like I said earlier, right? To a large extent, we have an existing 4G network that was deployed in the nation. Yes, it's not everywhere yet, and the work is there, to deploy more sites, to expand our penetration. We're currently working on deploying, more LTE sites across the nation. It's an ongoing project. We're rounding up, in a couple of months. Now, once we have that, because of the lockdown, there's been a spike in our data usage on the network. I know everybody knows that Nine Mobile is synonymous to data in terms of the speed of data and all of that. Now, work is also ongoing on our side to be able to soak up this, high traffic. A lot of our traffic jumped up by 20-25%, during this lockdown period. And because we still want to maintain the quality of service, work is still ongoing to expand, redesign, do a lot of things to soak up this capacity. Now, that's the focus of the network. But in terms of 5G, yes, we are aware that competition has done some trial. We are also working on, getting our network ready to be able to at least do some tests and trial for us to be sure that we can evolve to it when required. Those are the things that we're doing, at the moment to get ourselves ready.
Okay, we have a question from El Tito. He said, first of all, he said, thank you for the clarification on the health perception of 5G. And his question is, does 5G help in cost reduction as organizations and business may be able to leverage on that?
Okay, so you have to look at cost reduction in different ways, okay? Right. So like we said now, if you have this network in place, a lot of people will work from home, right? A lot of things will be done remotely. Now, the cost of bringing everybody to the office, providing internet and all of that, you have to compare it with the cost of everybody staying at home and give them internet access from there. Now, there's some businesses that they don't own their building, they rent.
Yeah.
Okay? So instead of renting, if everybody is at home, right? That's the cost of rent. So the cost components, you have to look at it in different locations and in different areas. But it might be profitable to give everybody a laptop that has Zoom, has all the collaborative tools. So everybody connects from wherever they are. You hold your meetings, you do everything. People submit their tasks and activities on a regular basis, and everybody moves on. So cost is a bit tricky. You have to look at it from all the different angles before you make a decision. But what we're saying is that this new technology gives you the ability now to have that consideration on the table and discuss it without affecting your business. Like we said earlier, this lockdown now has exposed some companies that don't have a business continuity plan. Okay, for have it was easy to switch. So they have all their servers online, ERPs online, their platforms, applications are available in the cloud. It's easy to switch. The same thing with the religious organizations. Some churches that were streaming live before, it was easy for them to switch. Now, for those that did before, it's becoming a struggle because they were not technologically ready. So those are the things that needs to be considered when you're looking at cost.
Okay, evidently, talking about cost, we know that it's going to cost us more money in terms of data, It's likely because you are going to be using a lot more in a shorter period. I mean, it's going to be easy. It's going to be.
So let me address that, right? So one of the things with the new technology is that it will allow you. Yes, it's going to be faster speed. Yes, it's going to be lower latency and all that. But the cost structure in the way telcos are going to charge for it might not necessarily change. So right now, you already have data bundles that people subscribe to. But we've gone a step deeper than that, where we give you customized bundles. So if you're doing chats, you have a bundle for your WhatsApp and all of that. So what's going to happen in the future is that there will be service-oriented bundles. So, for example, if all you do is just upload videos or video stream, there might be a customized bundle for that. The same thing with social media, just the way it is. However, the only thing that I can mention from a cost point of view, which is a drawback to 5G, is that, like you said, you need a new phone.
Yeah.
Because all the phone that we have right now does not support it. So you need to buy a new phone. And you know what happens? New phones are very expensive.
Yeah, and maybe new Wi-Fi devices and the rest.
Exactly. So all those devices will, because the existing ones are not forward compatible. They are backward compatible, but not forward
compatible. All right. Joe Omang says that 5G is alleged to be associated with, and indeed, the tool of the Antichrist. How do you allay the fears of currently scheduled religious gatherings? I believe that Mr. Cheyi has addressed this question earlier in the show. He said, like he said, people see something they do not understand, they tend to, create a lot of theories around it.
Absolutely.
So, I have Tito's question. He says, how prepared are we when it comes to cybersecurity on these emerging technologies? And I believe this question is valid because there's an existing battle between the US and China regarding the custodianship of this technology. For example, the US has some of its telco providing this service, but they also have Huawei, which is more, reportedly more advanced, in the deployment of this service. And now the US has said that they could be backdoors on this technology to spy and commit espionage. How prepared do you think we are when it comes to cybersecurity in Nigeria?
So in terms of Nigeria, we still have a lot of work to do when it comes to cybersecurity. I mean, there is this 419 thing that's happening, on the internet where there is always a Nigerian prince, that they mention that everywhere. So when they mention cybersecurity, it's like it's synonymous to us in Nigeria, which is not a good situation to have. And I know for a fact that NITDA, NCC, a lot of the Nigerian regulatory bodies are already working on a cybersecurity platform that allows us to be able to defend the country and actually stop some negative things. So it's work in progress. We've noted it. The nation has noted it, and it's work in progress. But with time, we'll get there. So the other thing I will highlight is, if you're a security expert out there, this is the time for you to come out and showcase what you can do in terms of helping secure businesses, secure individuals, and all of that. And if there's any application that's out there that you feel can be useful, it's a good time to start making noise about it. Because with the new technology, security is a major concern, and you're right about that.
It's also a good time to upgrade skill sets for cybersecurity experts, for example, so you don't get abandoned in the past.
Absolutely. That's actually one of the things that's going to affect the work of the future in Nigeria. So if you see it right now, in the future, there is a requirement for cybersecurity experts. There's a requirement for cloud guys. So if you're trying to get certified in AWS, Azure, Microsoft Azure, and all those cloud platforms, this is the time to start. In fact, it's too late actually. It's late, but maybe not too late. But you should get into that journey, that bandwagon right now, because it's going to be required in the next 3 to 5 years.
Okay, Boy Tete is asking a question. He says, do we need to change our devices to access 5G when it's available, or what's the plan? We already addressed the question. All of these devices are backward compatible, but not forward compatible, which means that your 4G device is not going to be able to work with 5G. You're going to need to get a new device or new devices as it seems.
So let me just
Okay.
add to that. There's some devices right now that are 5G compatible.
Yeah.
So there is a like of Samsung S10, S20, Nokia 10.
There's a Vivo.
There's Huawei Mate X.
Yeah.
There's some of those. If you have those devices right now, then you are 5G ready.
Even
But
with
the majority of devices right now are not 5G compatible.
all right. I'll just briefly while we await we'll take 2 or 3 more questions. But I'll just say something briefly about the conspiracy theories that are going out there. For example, in Nigeria we have coronavirus, and it is spreading. As we increase testing capacity, we find out that we have new more. Yesterday we crossed 1,000 threshold out of about 9,000 tests. And it shows that we have a long way to go, because these 1,000 people have at least 20 or 10 more people, that you need to test around them. And there is no existing technology here in the country that already put tests. Theory that the mask costs 5G. It costs the 5G mask costs coronavirus. Test was carried out. Calabar did not have coronavirus until very recently. So it kind of shows that, all of these theories are nonsense. And like Mr. Kei says, he says that go on the internet, not social media, research on. I also have an article on this topic on our site, platform.com, plet4m.com. And enlighten yourself so that you don't sound ignorant, when we are discussing.
So let me just add something. Talking about the coronavirus, I want to actually give a shout out and thanks to our health workers out there. I have a couple of friends and family that are going out every day to battle coronavirus in the country. I mean, it's a challenging job for them. We are staying at home, but they are going out every day. So they are true heroes. I want to just say a big thank you to them.
Oh, well, I also have a doctor friend that comes home, once in like 3 days after a shift. And when we see, one of the first things I do is I hire him. I'm like, and then I just think of it. I'm like, oh, don't worry, just be safe. So yeah, shout out to all of the workers. A very big thank you to Mr. Shei, who has addressed all of our questions regarding 5G. We have Obina Jones asking the question. He says, do we think that 5G would motivate employees to work remotely when it becomes mainstream?
So to a large extent, I think I've answered that earlier as well, that it's an opportunity, it's an option on the table for you to think about. So in places where these things are already predominant, right, there's a possibility that you say people should come to work maybe once a week. And because the place you're renting is rented per square meter. So if you have 5 people, that means you're paying more compared to having 2 people. So but what we're saying, technology brings an option to the table that allows you to decide whether you want to work from home or not. And we've seen it in this lockdown right now. Everybody is working in one form or the other from home.
With the existing 4G technology.
With the existing 4G technology.
So at the end of the day, we see that the technology or new technology gives us new possibilities, new improve, new development. And I would like to say thank you very much. It's been an honor being with you here on the show. I initially had you down for like 30 minutes maximum, but I've been able to stretch that for 15 minutes because our audience has been engaging. Mr. Oluseyi is the manager IP planning and enterprise, 9Mobile, and we see all of the beautiful work because we know that you're an essential worker too. I have a friend of mine. He works with Huawei, and he has to put on his laptop and work every day, whether there's lights or not. He has to find work, some Sims will work. So I totally understand that even in this crisis, some of the time you have to be on the phone or go out and make sure that people still get network, people still get access to devices, because even doctors, news station, they can't work without it. And I just appreciate you, just like you have appreciated the doctors. Thank you very much, sir. It's been an honor. I would also look forward to having you back, some other time, maybe when the virus clears up. Maybe we'll also look forward to being with you, understanding these technologies and how we can help people, understand these technologies. So thank you very much, sir. It's been a pleasure. Shout out to our friends. It's been very engaging. Thank you for staying. Thank you very much. We are going to be showing this again. It's going to be on our story, and we'll be showing it again on our social media channels. Thank you very much, sir. Have a
thank you.
Yes, sir.
It's a pleasure. All right, stay safe.
Yeah, you
Bye.
too, sir.